Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Life Runners podcast. A couple things I wanted to talk about today, kind of more on the current events side of watches than maybe on the vintage or learning about watches or something like that. I wanted to discuss a fairly big sporting event that took place this past weekend, which was the American football Super Bowl, where the Philadelphia Eagles played against the Kansas City Chiefs. And, of course, there was some watch spotting. I want to talk about Rihanna's watch because I think it is... obviously, there's a lot of watches that were spot, but I think Rihanna's watch is a pretty significant watch just for... I don't know. I think the ladies and watches and the place that watches actually plays in their lives. I'll then talk about the incredible Code 1159 by Audemars Piguet Universelle RD number 4, which is a real, in my opinion, shows what Code 1159 is about, and also is a fairly significant piece that's been released by this brand. To me, one of the most important watches that they've released over the last 10 years. And then I'll close off with, of course, discussing MB&F, my favorite independent watch company. I've been covering MB&F for basically all the years that I've been running Life on the Wrist. I've covered them, so we'll be talking about one of their new watches that they released, or a new version of one of their watches that they've released. So as I mentioned, I wanted to start off with Rihanna. I know that we have an international audience, so perhaps you don't follow American football. If you live in the U.S., maybe you don't follow the American football either, but the Super Bowl is essentially the final match of the American football season, where the two best teams come together and play against each other to win the grand trophy. Every year they have a halftime show, which means in the middle of the game, after one of the halves is played, there is typically an artist who performs their music as sort of entertainment while halftime goes on. This year, Rihanna was one of the was the performer for the halftime show. It was pretty incredible to see her perform. I didn't watch the game, but I did catch the highlights on the next day, and I also watched some of her performance, and it was really cool to see her perform because let's say she performed a lot of her classics and songs that were extremely popular when they were first released. Of course, being watch enthusiasts, and I'm sure many of you who did watch the game or watch the highlights, you probably were wondering if she was wearing a watch. And, of course, the watch spotters did find that she was wearing a watch on her wrist. The watch was made by Jacob & Co. It was their time-only Jacob Brilliant Skeleton Northern Lights watch, and she was wearing it on a matching red strap. This was an interesting piece for her to choose for this type of performance. Typically, you would imagine someone to wear something a little bit more sporty when you are performing, but I thought this was a really elegant choice by her, and obviously matched her outfit and the performers and the performance that they sort of put on. To give you a little bit more detail, and I'll put a link in the show notes to the watch. It's a 44 millimeter cased watch in stainless steel. It has this incredible red mineral crystal dial, which allows you to see the movement really nicely. Which I think is a cool feature to this watch. What's really sets this piece, makes it stand out is it has 251 pave set round cut diamonds around the outside of the dial. Let's call it a bezel outside of the outside of the watch, and then the crown itself has 30 round cut white diamonds. So you've got a real red motif going on here with a ton of really beautiful diamonds that make this piece very, very elegant. The watch was originally made in 101 examples and retailed for $72,000 US. This was a really cool piece for her to wear. I think it matched her outfit pretty well. I think the diamonds were really elegantly placed, and it's a beautiful watch for a lady to wear. I think this watch goes well beyond just the significance it has for this Super Bowl and Rihanna's sort of show. I think it shows that women, women should look to sort of wear watches, and it's not just a male-dominated thing to do is to wear a watch. There are some really elegant watches that women can wear, including this this Jacob & Co. That she was sporting. I also think it's an interesting piece because one could describe this as a little bit more of an accessory with all of the diamonds on the watch, but it does come from Jacob & Co. with a pretty nice looking movement, leaf hands, which I think are really beautiful. But I think it demonstrates a nice elegant way of wearing a watch in an environment that might be a little bit more sporty. I am going to mention this, our video this week for our YouTube channel, and the article for the editorial section of our website actually talks about sort of this, maybe a shift away from stainless steel sports watches or sports watches in general. And I think this is an interesting watch to sort of talk about with this. Some women feel like they can't wear sports watches because they're so big, but there is this sort of boyfriend trend of watch that some people do wear. Regardless of your taste, I do think this is a nice piece and represents a nice comeback for Rihanna, and also a nice accessory for her to be wearing. If you actually look at the rest of her outfit, she was wearing some nice earrings. I think she was wearing a nice necklace, but her outfit was fairly simple, and so it was cool that this watch was actually a fairly large part of the outfit that she chose. There were some other watches that were spotted during the Super Bowl. I'll put a link in the show notes to. I believe there's a Hodinkee article where they talk about some other people like Jay-Z and Gordon Ramsay. So be sure to check out the links to see some of the other watches that were spotted. Moving on, I'll shift gears a little bit and start talking about the Code 1159 by Audemars Piguet Universelle RD number 4. The number 4 is the latest series. It's the latest in the series of watches dedicated to building on the existing vocabulary of complication, and sort of pushes things in a new direction for them. It was developed over a period of 7 years, and it's a grand complication with a crazy amount of technicality that goes into this. It was inspired by the Universelle pocket watch movement made by Audemars Piguet in 1899, and it has 26 complications, including a grande and petite sonnerie, perpetual calendar, split second, jumping seconds, and deadbeat seconds chronograph. This watch is oftentimes thought of as rivaling the Henry Grave super complication, and so this is a beautiful piece that's sort of based off of that watch. I won't go too in depth on all the complications. I'll leave a link in the show notes to a really great revolutionwatch.com article if you want to read a little bit more about it. But what I wanted to discuss was Code 1159 as a line of watches. When they were released, I think there was a lot of adversity to the lineup of watches, because for some reason, many people thought the aesthetics of the pieces were not great. The movements that were used weren't as high quality as they would hope, and it was deviating from such a iconic, sort of well-established design that many collectors love. But I remember listening to the CEO of Audemars Piguet sort of introduce this watch, and what he said is, we do have the Royal Oak, which is a great foundation. It's a great staple in Audemars Piguet, and is a great way of describing the brand. But just creating Audemars Piguet Royal Oaks all the time is not really going to be innovative. You can add complications here and there, but you're not innovating from a design perspective as much as coming out with a new line of watches. And so the Code 1159 was a way to move Audemars Piguet into a new sort of environment, a new time period for the brand, where they were able to take this existing design that they've come up with and release watches of incredible complications, of cool design, and at the end of the day, innovate for the brand. And that really stuck with me because I love brands that have classic designs that are tried and true and loved by many collectors. But I do think that there is something about innovating and trying something new that brands need to do in order to come out with that new classic. Because 40, 50 years down the road, I would hate for a brand to fail because they've been producing the same watch for the last 100 years, or not have something that people would look back on the 2020s and say, wow, that was something that they released then and really has become an icon. And so I really love the Code LM59, some of the pieces more than others, but I do think that it's an important piece in the grand scheme of things for Audemars Piguet as a brand. I had the opportunity to actually hold one of these in person, and it's actually more impressive in person when you not the RD4, but a Code 1159, and it's actually more impressive in the flesh, in the hand, when you have it in your hands and are able to put on your wrist, especially when you have the opportunity to look at the case profile, so you can see how the lugs work or integrate with the case, and how the case design has been manufactured. This Universelle RD number 4, just to give you some of the specs, it's like I mentioned, grand and petite sonnerie, minute repeater, flying tourbillon, semi-Gregorian perpetual calendar, flyback chronograph, split seconds, and has an hours and minutes indicator as well. It's a 42mm case, and you can get it in 18 karat white gold or pink gold. It has a 8 karat Hunter case back, which opens onto the Super Sonnerie Sapphire membrane, has a water resistance of 20 meters. The dial is opaline black galvanic gold dial. They also have an opaline beige PVD gold dial, and then lastly an open works dial with black flang paired with white or pink gold case. These are obviously on price on request. I don't know if they're produced in limited quantities. That is something that I wasn't quite sure about, but being in the Code 1159, this watch is, again, it's pushing the boundaries of what Audemars Piguet can do. Obviously, they're basing it off of one of the watches that they produced back in 1899 and bringing back those complications in a new way. And I think that to me is a really important thing that a brand can do. Taking what is considered one of the best pieces and centerpieces of the Audemars Piguet Museum of Watches, and producing it in a case and a design in the design language of today. And I don't think you can underscore how important that is for a brand to do so, because it's basically saying in 1899 we could create one of these, and in 2023 we can also create one of these and make it look incredibly beautiful. It's a complicated piece, so looking at the dial, looking at the case construction and the thickness, it's not everyone's cup of tea. Maybe it's a little bit too complicated for many, but again, it's a very important part of demonstrating what Audemars Piguet can do from a technical perspective and also from a design perspective, integrating it with this new line of watches that is pushing the boundaries for the brand and moving them in a new direction, or providing them with an alternative direction that isn't just the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. Last but not least, the Legacy Machine number 2 was a watch that was released, I think it was 10 years ago at this point. And MB&F released a couple weeks ago the Legacy Machine number 2, but they sort of innovated with the case metal and dial color. They created a limited edition of 18 pieces in palladium and aquamarine blue. This aquamarine blue is an incredibly beautiful hue. One of my favorite colors is the titanium version, which has sort of like a bluish green dial. The red gold and blue dial limited edition that they did as well is also really beautiful, but this blue is just a little bit lighter, a little bit more subtle, and I actually think it goes really nicely with the case, with the palladium case color. It's, to me, a little bit more under the radar, if you can say that about an LM2. These watches are obviously have 2 flying balance wheels that oscillate independently and are averaged out to give you a more accurate time, essentially. An LM2 is 2 flying balance wheels that oscillate independently and are averaged out to give you a more accurate time, essentially. An LM2 is 2 flying balance wheels that oscillate independently and are averaged out to give you a more accurate time, essentially. an LM2 is 2 flying balance wheels that oscillate independently and are averaged out to give you a more accurate time, essentially. I had the opportunity to put on one of these. It was the platinum version with that was a limited edition of 18 pieces, and boy does it have a presence on the wrist. But wow, it's so mesmerizing to watch the watch oscillate on your wrist, and it's a really beautiful piece. I'll put a link in the show notes to the LM2 so you can check it out. I'll put a couple of links where we've covered the LM2 as well on Life on the Wrist if you want to read and watch our videos about these pieces. But again, I think it's a nice addition, a cool case metal that I don't believe they've used to create one of their Legacy Machine number 2s, and a nice aquamarine blue dial color that's really fabulous. Hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast. Check out the show notes so you can see some of the pictures and articles that we mentioned during this podcast. If you are new to the podcast, be sure to leave a review. It really does help me out. Maybe I'll start doing a giveaway. I listen to a couple other podcasts where they do giveaways for people who leave reviews. So maybe I'll start that up, and I can ship maybe some Life on the Wrist merch to you if you'd be interested in that. If you are new to the podcast, be sure to follow us and share this podcast with a friend who might be interested in watches. With that said, guys, I hope you all have a fantastic week, and until next time.